You and I are dictators of the world, dictators of the world, dictators of the world. You and I are dictators of the world, science and the arts. And we have decreed that all of science, most of the arts will be devoted now to finding out how to increase the aesthetic ability of the brain of future generations. How do we do that?
What is this for you?
This
design
is a kind of snail found on the land in the state of Idaho, which is a new species and also on the edge of extinction. So would you say, what does it mean to me? It depends on in what mode of thinking you wish me to speak. In aesthetics, of course, this snail shows one of the classic designs of nature, which is the logarithmic spiral. The brain is wired to have maximum response to about 20 degrees of complexity. And that is the amount of complexity that you find in a logarithmic spiral.
The beauty or art is always connected with the impulse of the brain.
Yes. In fact, that degree of complexity, it's also the amount that you have in a labyrinth with about 10 turns in it. You know? That's the way the brain is built. And this is possibly one of the reasons why artists choose in abstract painting and in design so often that degree of complexity. The snail, however, did not design itself with the human mind as a goal.
Yeah.
We still don't know if it is true that there's that connection between the way the brain works in arousal, you know, that's the peak of arousal when you see that. There's a connection between that and the origin of culture and the origin of our identification of something as beautiful. We're not all that sure, but it looks suggestive. Why should it have stopped? Because the head of an infant, this is something physiologists would agree on, I think. The head of the infant is just as big as it can be made. It cannot be made bigger because of the female human pelvis cannot handle more. That's the biggest object that can pass through the womb to the outside, is the head of a human baby.
No,
So,
I'm not talking that the brain itself will be bigger, but let us say the way we deal with the information in the brain, because the brain is like almost like a planet who's undiscovered. We don't know yet how it functions, right? There are a lot of parts of the brain are completely unmapped, completely
they're just in the early
incognita.
stages. Yeah, they're just in the early stages of mapping.
So that means could be possible, but there are some parts of the brain who could be still developed by getting new impulses in to approach ethical principle or aesthetical principle in a different way.
Yes,
or you don't believe this?
Yes, that's a good idea, and that's not impossible.
Yeah, that's what
not
I mean.
impossible.
That's what I meant. That's,
yeah, how would we do that? If a theorem, a mathematical theory about a physical process is beautiful, you know, if in puzzling out its meaning once it's written and relating it to a physical process, if it's beautiful, it probably will prove to be true. And there are ugly theories, you know, that have all sorts of loops and steps and so on. And
what do you mean? It looks aesthetically beautiful, and it's probably true.
That's right. Yeah, it's what we call elegant. Elegant. Yeah. That's the word. Yeah. Elegant means that it is transparent It is an expression in mathematics which, when you say it, you say, aha, yeah, you know, like the shell. It is by unpacking the idea of the theory of evolution by natural selection that has led to so many insights, you know, such as why the shell evolved the way it did, and more than that, why that species is there in that one place, and how it is related to other shells that look like that, and so on, and it all fits together, and that's what we call consilience.
So they will become the future.
What?
They will become the future critics, in a sense.
Yes.
The biologists and the scientists. They
well,
will become the future critics of artists.
I think, you know, every knowledge everywhere now is coalescing. That's
So
the
one more
one.
time, calls what?
Coalescing, coming together.
Coalition, yeah. Coalition. Yeah.
Now that's one thing. That's not an idiosyncratic idea I have. But it's one reason why the notion of consilience, as I presented it, you know, a few years ago, is becoming very popular because it's now being understood in higher education and in research that the greatest advances in the sciences, and probably it's going to be true of many of the studies of the humanities, particularly if they come as they come close to biology, is not by narrow examination of particular subjects anymore, although that continues as very valuable, but the big jumps will be putting things together. It's called the age of synthesis. The age of synthesis. The age of synthesis.
What do you do with the idea of the jumps
Yeah.
to suppose something? There's
Oh,
I always
yeah.
have the impression what connects us, scientists and artists, that we dare to take the leap
That
into
is-
the void.
but that
to
is-
suppose
Yeah.
this could be possible. Is
Yeah.
that not an opening to discover new fields for art,
Of
for
course,
science? No?
of course.
And what do you do with this? With
It is identical. The visionaries think like artists. They have the same imaginative powers. They have the same dreams. They deal with fantasies all the time. And I like to say that the ideal scientist thinks like a poet, works like a bookkeeper. When you paint a beautiful picture, it can be a representation of, it can be a literal depiction of part of nature, of an organism or a cell, a tissue, whatever. You can make that very beautiful by artistic standards. But then as you magnify it, take a magnifying glass, and then you take a microscope, and you come up close, and lo and behold, the beauty comes from the pattern that the artist used. And beyond that pattern, as extraordinary achievement that might be in a great piece of art, there is nothing, 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 nothing. We know, for example, that we are extremely limited in what we perceive. The average human looks around and says, through my five senses, I can see all the world as it actually is.
Okay.
And through my marvelous brain, I create a reality that's very close to the real world out there. Actually, we could talk to bats if we wanted to. The bat, we can't hear the high squeaks of a bat that's echolocating and chasing down insects. We can't hear them, and they can't hear us speak in low tones. They couldn't hear what I'm saying now, but we could get it up high frequency, you know, too high for us to hear anymore, and they would say, "What's he saying?" In other words, each species has its own narrow range of capacities.
Is it you who said it's the animals, or still the best doctors and philosophers in the world?
Doctors and?
Philosophers in the world.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Who? Animals?
Animals are the best doctors and philosophers in the world.
Why do you say that?
No, because by the quality and the possibilities they have that we don't have. So we can learn a lot from them still.
No, the point, no, yes, I see your
still,
point. The point,
amazingly knowledge.
okay. It's just that they live in a different Umwelt. You know, that's the German for the surrounding sensory world. Okay. They don't see what we see and then also see ultraviolet. They see ultraviolet, but they can't see far red, the butterflies. In other words, they're just as limited as we are. But it's a different. If we could get all of the sensory sensory capacities of all of the animals in the world and put them together, we would vastly expand our range of capability. And you know, we do. That's what science and technology is about. That's what science and technology is about. That's what science and technology is about.
What is for you the most sexy part of the body?
The sexiest part of the body? Which gender?
Doesn't matter, female or male. What is the most sexy part of the body?
Sexiest?
Yes.
Now you've finally given me a question that I can't answer, or I'm reluctant to answer. I'm inclined to say center of beauty, anyway, is the face.
The face?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Both men and women.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I hesitate to say sexiest.
Yeah.
As you well know, men are generally biologically, genetically programmed to consider the totality of the female body and every part of it.
Yeah.
So it's a very difficult question to answer, and it would be embarrassing to try to be more specific.
For me, it would be the brain.
What?
For me, it would be the brain, the most sexiest part of the body.
Oh,
the brain.
you see, you've tricked me on that one, because when we say body, normally we talk about body and mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you see, for me,
So,
but it's not the brain.
But
it's a very important organ in the body.
Oh, it is. But
most of the
you know,
time, most of the time we're forgetting it.
Yeah, the English usage is the physical body and then the mind.
Yeah,
of course,
yeah.
we were referring to the mind.
Yeah.
I find the physical brain, you know, with its hemispheres and sulci and gyres and so on, notably unsexy. Notably unsexy. Notably unsexy.